Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you're located, and welcome to your first day of class. I'm Marketing Communications Manager Daniel Sloan, and on behalf of Trident at AIU, I want to say thank you for taking the next step in your educational journey with us. New students often have a lot of questions, and we're here to help. As a way to ease you into our unique student-centered model, we've designed this webinar that will cover all the areas vital to success in your chosen program. And on behalf of everyone at Trident, we hope you're happy, safe, and healthy. We know it's been a trying few months for everyone. Things have been difficult, and if you need a helping hand, we're here for you. And you'll notice that's going to be a theme of this presentation. We're big on communication. We're big on support. We have two presenters joining us today. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. George Del Hierro. He joined Trident in 2010 and currently serves as a full-time instructor in University College. During his time at Trident, he has worked closely with students in a variety of roles, including academic advising, financial aid, and academic probation support services. He earned a PhD in educational leadership from Trident last year and has received numerous awards during his time at the university. He is a passionate advocate for student success. Next, we have Michael Minnaugh, who's been with Trident since 2017, and he's a project manager in the Center for Student Success. Oversees the online orientation course, and he teaches Tux 101. He has a decade of experience in education, holding roles such as elementary school teacher, admissions advisor, academic counselor, and finance manager. And he's an advocate for a positive student experience throughout the entire path to graduation. He works closely with students, and he enjoys helping them to achieve both their personal and professional goals. A few notes before we begin today's session. You're welcome to ask questions at any time. Just look for the control panel. You'll find that on the right-hand side of your screen. Go about halfway down. You'll see a questions box. Just type your questions in there, any comments, anything you need assistance with, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. We will answer you during the presentation, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session where both Dr. Del Hierro and Michael will answer any questions you may have. And this webinar will be recorded, and all attendees will receive a link to the webinar and a copy of the slides later this week. Today's agenda is going to touch on some of the challenges that new students often have, some of the most popular issues they've shared with us in the past. And we're going to start things off with Michael, who's going to talk about student tips for success. So take it away, Michael.
Thank you, Danny. First off, again, I want to echo Daniel's sentiment. Welcome, everybody, to Trident at AIU. We are very excited to have you here. It's the first day of class. Welcome. So these are some tips that we find the new online students or other online students are very, very needing to get in order to be successful. So just a brief overview. We'll go into these more in detail, but be confident, ask questions. They kind of go together. You can do this. You are here. So the hard part is over. We're about to start the process, and we're here to support you as much as we can on this process. Again, with that, know that you are supported. You have a team of advisors behind you. You also have your professors and then your peers inside your classroom that are here to help you as well. They're going through the same journey that you are. Time management. This is a big one we're going to spend a little bit of time on. It is a major component to success in the online world. And then just make sure with that, you want to be on point with your academic planning to make sure that you're on your own track when you want to graduate. Finally, have fun. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So it is school, but it doesn't have to be so serious. So make sure you have fun. We all want to make sure that we're having, especially in these times as well. So a little brevity goes a long way, I believe. So we're going to get more into detail. We're going to start on time management and some tips on success for time management. So let's go to the next slide. There we go. So some tips for success. As myself, I'm also an online student. I have two kids. I work, as you heard in the introduction, a couple of different roles here at the university. So I wear a lot of different hats. A lot of you are doing the same thing. You're working, you're taking care of family. There's multiple things that you have responsibility to. As such, time management is a critical aspect of success in the online world as an online student. I am a success advisor, and something I tell all of my students is the beauty of the online classroom is that you can go to school whenever you want, but you can also not go to school when you want. The reason why I say that is because it is critical to have a time management plan in order to succeed in class. So one thing that I suggest in terms of time management is to create that plan. One thing that I tell everyone is to treat this just like you're going to a brick and mortar school. So whether that is going to classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 6 to 8, set up specific times that you attend your classes. One thing that will do is that will alleviate a lot of stress. When you think that you can go whenever you want, it's easy to not attend. So when you have those designated times that you are going to go into the classroom, you don't need to worry about these additional burdens that are outside that may come in from time to time. So you know that you're going to go on Tuesday at 6 and you're going to read and you're going to submit your papers, whatever that is. So develop that plan that works for you. You can go when you want. So you can make that plan at 5 in the morning or at 5 in the evening, whatever works for you. Being an asynchronous environment, you can plan ahead for things that you know are going to happen. So if you have a holiday coming up or a weekend that's going to be a vacation or something like that, family trips, you can plan ahead because you know when your assignments are going to be laid out. In the class itself, there is a calendar that gives you all the breakdown of when your assignments are due, so you can plan around that accordingly. Make a list. Some students are very, very, they get a lot out of making lists. So if you are someone that gets a lot out of that, that is a great way to manage your time. Things are going to need to be changed. Flexibility is a main aspect of success as well. So sick kids are going to come up, or a work project is going to need more attention to time. So make sure that you can build in that flexibility whenever you need to in that time management plan. And things are going to happen. Life happens. So don't get discouraged when you do fall behind and maybe you aren't attending on those dates that you set forth on your calendar. There are a lot of different resources here at the university that you can utilize to ensure that you're successful in the classroom. So let's talk about some of those resources now that you can reach out to when you need help. So first off, you have a success team or an advising team. So that can consist of your admissions advisor, who a lot of you have already probably spent time with, your finance advisor, who all of you have probably also spoken with, and then your student success advisor. That's kind of the three trifecta of advising teams that you have access to. Your admissions advisor helps you through the first couple of weeks in the class. They're your main point of contact for any sort of questions about that whole onboarding process. So any sort of paperwork that you would need in terms of transcripts or just that front end paperwork, applications, that kind of a thing. And then they'll help you in your first couple of weeks here in class. They're your main point of contact. You also have a success advisor. That's your academic advisor. So they will make sure once that 2 weeks is over, that they kind of take over from then until graduation. They're with you through the rest of your time here. They'll ensure that you're on track for whatever your plan is to graduate. They'll have your schedule all prepped. If you have questions about what classes, when you need to take them, transfer of credit, anything like that, they're your main point of contact. And then finally, you have your finance advisor for any sort of financial questions as well. We all want to see you succeed. We're all here to support. There is nothing that if you call someone and they don't know the answer, they will find out and get back to you. We all are here for you if you need anything. Finally, your professors. They are a vital resource that students can use. As a success advisor, I get a lot of questions about specific assignments in the class. I can help with certain things that I might know about, but I'm not a professor. So if I get a question about something that's not my area of expertise, I'm not able to assist like I would. Your professor is your first line of a resource if you have questions about specific assignments or anything along those lines. They're the experts, so they want to make sure that you have the support that you need, and they want to see you succeed as well. So if you have a question about something, please ask. Something I tell all my students is that, we are here to help, but we can't help with a problem that we don't know about. So please let us know how we can help you. That is what we're here for. Let's talk a little bit more about those professors here in the next slide. Oh, sorry, not the professors, the additional resources that you have. So there are multiple resources that we'll talk through here. Couple of generic things. So in your portal, when you log in, before you get into the class, there is a main toolbar at the top of the page. One of those menu options is your resources. So just like the screenshot shows, it's a drop down of part of the things that you have access to inside the class that are going to be helpful. So the writing workshop, Math 95, which is additional math help if you need it. Statistics help, it's like a onboarding statistics class. If you've never taken that before, I highly suggest those two. I'm not a math person, so when I needed to take math, those are two resources that I wish were available to me. And then the writing style guide. So the writing workshop and the writing style guide kind of go hand in hand. The style guide goes into APA formatting and some of the things that you'll need to ensure you're a successful academic writer and your papers are formatted properly. And then the writing workshop is similarly where you can get some of that help as well. Along with those general resources that every student has access to, there are further resources that you have inside of the class as well through a website that we use called tutor.com. So tutor.com is an excellent resource that I want to mention because you can get additional resource inside of a specific classroom. So let's go to the next slide and we will talk a little bit more about what those classes are. So when you're inside your class, the screenshot below here shows exactly how to access tutor.com. Now it's only available for specific classes, but it's a great resource. You can get a live person 24 hours a day in the classes, English 101, Math 101, Math 102, BHS 220, Operations Management 300, and Finance 301, Tux 101, and Tux 301, which many students are taking. These resources are offered in these classes because we find that students need the most help in these classes. So like I said, you get access to 24-hour tutoring, whether it's 5 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. You can reach out through your portal inside of the classroom itself. And you'll get somebody that you're able to work through with any sort of issues that you're having. Especially the math and the English, I definitely want to stress, those are a lot of the foundational courses that you're going to use moving on in your program. You definitely want to make sure you have a good foundation in those courses because you're going to be writing papers and you're going to be doing other math type classes. So you want to make sure you have a good foundation there. So if you need help, use that resource. It is definitely a great resource that you have available to you. So let's move on to the next slide, and we're going to talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, which is orientation. So as mentioned at the front, I am the orientation facilitator. So I look through and respond back to every single student's posting as they go through that class. Definitely something that I want to recommend to everybody. If you've not checked it out, then please do so. It is a practice classroom. It's a mock classroom. Every single one of your courses is going to look exactly like the orientation class. So it will go through 5 modules. Each module, there's a couple of different tasks that you'll do and a couple of different pieces of information that you're going to learn along the way that we've kind of covered here. So how to access your professor's email information or your success advisor's phone number if you need to contact them. It'll go through information about writing and math help, the tutoring things that we've discussed. It gives information about who we are as a university and kind of the values that we stand for and what sets us apart. It also goes through a couple of different assignments that you will practice. So you'll do a discussion board posting, and then you'll submit something through the Dropbox. So if you're new to the online world, or if it's been 10 years since you've been to school, I definitely recommend this to shake those cobwebs off it is a great way to just practice. Click around. There's nothing you can break. There's nothing you can do that's going to affect the orientation, except for making you feel more proficient in the class. If you know where to find something and how to access it, that is half the battle. So definitely, like I said, recommend that. Get in there. I'll be happy to see you in the future. So you have access to the course for up to 6 months. So if, like I said, if it's something you haven't checked out yet, then I definitely recommend that you do so. We find that students are more successful in their courses after attending the orientation class. So we've talked about a couple of resources that are available to you, a few different time management steps that you can take. So now you're probably wondering, what do I do now? I'm here at the orientation webinar. It's the first day of class. What do I do? What do I do now? So it is the first day of class. Log into your course. Take a few minutes to go into the introduction of that course and say hello. Introduce yourself. Don't wait for somebody to reach out, because you are the person that is in charge of your own educational experience here. So say hello. Make some contacts. Meet friends inside of the class that you're going to be taking and spend the next couple of months with. This is where you can start to develop those relationships with your professor and your peers that can really help you as you go throughout your journey here at Trident at AIU. Look over the syllabus. Make sure that you're prepared. One thing that I talk to a lot of my students with is making sure that they meet the criteria of the rubric of an assignment. So look through that syllabus and read your assignments and make sure that you know what you need to do in terms of bare bones to submit an assignment. Does it need to be X amount of paragraphs? Does it need to have X references? Those kinds of things. As already mentioned, post your introduction in the forum. Meet your instructor. You can email them. You can post that into the introduction part of the class that you're going to take. One thing that is big is to ask questions. If you don't know something, like we mentioned earlier, there are a number of different people that you can reach out to for help. So whether you have an academic question, a question about a specific assignment, or a question about the process or the financial aid or financial process, please reach out to us. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable and that you are successful here. Make that time management plan. That is crucial to success in an online world. I cannot stress that enough. Like I said, as somebody who is wearing a lot of different hats, trying to take care of kids and go to school and work a job, it is essential to be able to compartmentalize everything and put, time where it needs to be placed at that specific time, but also allowing yourself to be flexible if something does come up, because it will happen. It is life. And then finally, check in with your advisor. Many of you have probably spoken with your admissions advisor or emailed them. Say hello to your success advisor. I know that I like to meet students before the class starts if I can. If you should see their information in your portal, your student success advisor, your finance advisor, and your admissions advisor. You have access to all of their calendars, so you can schedule an appointment if you'd like to do that. You can email them. You can call them. We are here to help any way we can. So those are the first things that I would do being the first day of class. So let's summarize everything here, and then we're going to pass it along to Dr. Del Hierro. So review your course the first day. You have plenty of time to get stuff in, but you don't want to wait. So make sure that you look into your course, you post your introduction, you say hello, you meet some people in your class that you can use as resources if you need it. Create your time management plan. When are you going to go to class? Are you going to go every day for 30 minutes? Are you going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 hours? Make your plan to make sure that you're successful. That is critical. Make sure that you want to go through and look at your assignments and what your expectation is as a student, which is going to be included in your discussions, your papers that you're going to write, and your session-long projects. Get to know your support system, your advisors, your professors, anybody here that is going to be able to help you. So please reach out. We want to make sure that we can help you if you need it. Other than that, I would recommend that you post in your first discussion by Wednesday. So I know it's maybe a lot of your first classes. I always recommend to get into your first discussion by that first Wednesday. So in 2 days, you should have your first assignment complete. You'll already be one step ahead in the game. So make sure you try to do that by Wednesday. You're going to be feeling really confident. You're going to be feeling much better about where you're at if you have that first assignment already completed. And then finally, if you think you're going to run into any issues, be proactive. We've talked about that a lot. Reach out for help. We want to make sure that you know you're supported, but we can't help with a problem if we don't know what's going on. So please use your resources, your professors, your advisors. We want to make sure that you are helped. And if you are having an issue and you see that happening in the future, just let us know. There's a lot of different things that we can do to support you. So please, if there is anything that you need, let us know. So again, welcome. I know this is a little bit of a new time that we're in with the pandemic. So I appreciate everyone's time and keep being here. I hope everyone's being safe, and I hope everyone is excited to start their first day of class. It's a new journey, so I'm excited to have you here as well. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Del Hierro. He's going to talk about a really important topic, academic writing, which a lot of students struggle with, and he's going to give some expert tips. Dr. Del Hierro.
Hey, thank you very much, Michael. Welcome again, everybody, to your first day of class. We are just so excited to welcome in a brand new cohort of leaders into our Trident family. So again, from the bottom of our hearts, we just welcome you, and we hope you're staying safe and healthy. This section is all about academic writing, so it's definitely not a catch-all. It's not an in-depth summary, an in-depth workshop on academic writing. The goal of this section is just to get your wheels going. We do know that some students are either transitioning into an academic environment from a professional environment or the military, or it's been a while since you've written an essay. So the key to your success early on as a new student is to build momentum and to keep that momentum going. So these slides are just to get that momentum going, get those wheels going. This slide summarizes some of the key differences between a business environment or a military environment and an academic environment in terms of writing. So some things to be aware of. And there are three key differences between those environments in writing and the academic expectations of your writing. So the first is your goal of writing. When you're in the military and when you're in an office environment, you're writing to achieve an objective, mission accomplishment. And so everything you do is working up towards meeting that objective as quick as possible with as minimal hiccups as you possibly can. The goal of academic writing, though, is to make you a better communicator. And so wherever you go, if you graduate with a degree, you're expected to have a high proficiency of writing, of effective written communication skills. And so your instructors are going to constantly give you feedback on you to improve those skills step by step. So don't get discouraged when you get the feedback and it's written up and it's chopped up to pieces. The goal is, again, to get you to graduation and to just continually make improvement. And that could be a real challenge for someone who is or for someone to wrap their head around when they have been in these military and these business environments, because the expectations within an institution or an academic institution is that you are explaining yourself and you're talking about the evidence that supports your thoughts and ideas. We're not just talking about the conclusion with these. When we ask you a question on your essay, we're not expecting a 2 to 3 sentence response so that you can answer that question or, in essence, complete the objective, complete the mission. We want to know how you came up to that conclusion. What evidence do you have, and the thought process behind your conclusions. So just think, good thinkers are good writers, and so it's one and the same. And good writers are good thinkers, and so this is a process for you to develop those thoughts and really draw out the reasons that support your conclusions to those answers. The second key difference is the process of writing. And so when you're in a business in a military environment, you're expected to, maybe you're writing a memo or a response to something or a document, you're passing it off to your superior, they'll edit it and pass it off to their superior. And before a decision is actually made, you're getting 2 or 3 people editing this document. And that's what's called a multi-authored document. When you're in an academic environment, you are the sole author. So it is a single authored writing system where you are developing the brainstorming, you're editing, for grammar and spelling errors, you're drafting up all of your the logic and the development of your ideas so that it is consistent and builds upon each other, and all that takes time. And so if you're a new student or you've been out of the academic environment realm for some time, that takes additional time that you just have to consider. But it's also a challenge for someone who has been out. So account for that in your time management plan, all that drafting and the editing and making sure your document is locked tight so that you can submit it for the best grade possible. So that's the second key difference. And the third key difference is voice. When you're in the military, especially, you're looking the same, you're talking the same, you're dressing the same. All of these things give uniformity. And so but too much uniformity within an academic environment leaves you at risk to violate academic integrity issues, such as plagiarism. So if you're sounding too much like the source of the information that you're getting, or if you're copying and pasting too much of another person's work, you're leaving yourself at risk for plagiarism issues. And so you need to kind of consider that. Your professors are looking for your independent understanding of these materials. So be sure to summarize and paraphrase as much as possible. Your instructor is also looking for evidence for your conclusions. So if we ask for your opinion on something, give us your opinion, but don't always rely on your experience. Don't solely rely on your experience. Your experience is a very, very important part of the Trident education, especially with our Trident learning model. But you need to couple that experience with background information and evidence that supports it. And on top of that, we're looking for a variety of different perspectives. So we're not just looking for your opinion and you're just searching the internet or the background resources for things that support your opinion or your experience. We're looking for your critical thinking skills and how you're weighing out the pros and the cons of a conclusion, and gathering materials from different sources, credible sources at that. And so I hope that clarifies some of the expectations of an academic environment versus what some of you may be most familiar with. The next slide is just a overview of an essay format. So again, this is not an all-inclusive slide. We have our writing resources lab that is fantastic and really dives into detail within our resources page. But again, this slide is just to give you a high-level overview of what your instructors are looking for within your essay, and also provides you some structure to develop your thoughts in a clear, rational, and logical way. So the metaphor I like to use, or the something that I just like to kind of compare an essay to, is like a PowerPoint presentation. So many of you are familiar with what a PowerPoint presentation is. So think about that when you're writing your essay if you're unfamiliar with it. Your PowerPoint starts off with an introductory slide. Maybe it shows it's your name or what you're going to be talking about, or a table of contents, something like that. It's a paragraph. Your introduction paragraph is the same thing as those introductory slides within your PowerPoint. You're introducing your topic. You're telling your audience why this is important and what you're going to be discussing. And so within that introduction paragraph, there's such a thing called a thesis statement. And so it's a very clear statement at the end of that, typically at the end of the paragraph, that basically says the purpose of this essay is blank. And the purpose of your essays, of all of your assignments, are found on the module homepage, and there, or especially on the learning outcomes of the assignment. So you look on your module homepage, there's very specific learning outcomes within your case assignment and your SLP and your discussion. These are things that your instructor is going to be gauging your understanding on. So you could almost say the purposes of this assignment is, or the purpose of this essay is, insert learning outcome. And so that should guide your thinking. So you're as you're answering questions within each assignment, answer those questions, but put on those glasses that look at them through the lens of those learning outcomes. And when you're struggling with thinking about what else to write about, or bringing it back home, come back to that learning outcome, to those learning outcomes, and insert a sentence that talks about how these questions are integrated into those learning outcomes. From there, you have various slides, right, in your presentation, and each slide has a main topic. Each slide is very similar to a paragraph in your essay. You stick to that main topic of that slide, or you stick to that main topic in the paragraph, and then you're expanding upon it. So I included some bullet points here for you to kind of consider within each section and subsection of your essay. I really would recommend you include headings and subheadings. It just makes it very clear that you're answering every question and you're hitting all the key ideas. So your instructor doesn't have to work hard to connect dots. Just make it extremely clear to your instructor that you're hitting all of the key points, all of those learning outcomes within your essay. I list here 4 to 7 sentences per paragraph. No one's going to be counting the sentences in your paragraph, but I use it as a gauge, because if you're falling below that 4-sentence mark, then you're probably being too brief and you're not fully addressing the question in a thorough enough way. So I would recommend you expand those thoughts. If you're going above 7 sentences, you're probably straying off topic, and you should just either be more concise, or chop up that larger paragraph into smaller paragraphs. And I say this in all my feedback. If you do that, you're more effectively highlighting your ideas. And so if it's hard for your instructor to identify your ideas, then you're not coming off as clearly and directly as you possibly can. Your ideas are being drowned out, or they're drowning out each other. So use that paragraph structure, use those headings and subheadings to really make your ideas pop for your instructor. We talked about evidence, and so be sure to include in-text citations using APA format. Again, there are resources on the TLC portal to help you out with that. And then I listed a couple ideas for you to consider if you're really struggling with how to format a paragraph. Just write a sentence about defining a key term, and then explaining the application of those key terms, and then discuss why that concept is important. And then I think you won't have a problem getting to that 4 to 7 sentence mark. But that's a very clear, it's a very logical way of developing your paragraph. And again, the keystone or the cornerstone of the Trident education is your experience. And so you're going to be asked a lot about how you can apply these ideas to your experience. So it's a very practical way of learning. It's a very strong learning approach. But again, define those key terms, explain their application to the scenario, and discuss why they're important to the class or to the lessons that you're having. And then finally, include a conclusion paragraph. And the conclusion paragraph is basically it's almost restating the introduction. Your introduction is saying, this is what we're going to talk about. The conclusion paragraph is saying, this is what we already have talked about. And so above all, we don't expect you to have this perfect. No one ever does. But again, the goal is to just make progress and for you to become a better communicator. And trust me, by the end of your program, this is going to become second nature, and you're going to be a very highly skilled writer. And so if any questions or issues pop up, just always reach out to your instructor or your advisor. At this point, I'm going to transition over to Daniel Sloan, if I haven't put you all to sleep, to talk about career and networking. So Daniel, you could take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Del Hierro. Wide awake over here, great information. And judging by the questions we got, I don't think you put anyone to sleep. So we have a few resources to help students outside of the classroom. First, I'd like to talk about Alumni Fire, and don't get tripped up by the name. It's for all students, not just alumni of Trident. So if today is your very first class of Trident, go sign up. You can see the URL on your screen right now, and if it's too small, we'll be sending around the slide deck for you later this week. That URL is trident.alumnifire.com, and this is a great place where you can connect with other students, alumni, faculty, and staff to get advice on your education, career, and more. We know everyone's separated by miles, international borders, and much more, and this is a way where we can really bring people together. And if you have any questions about that, reach out to alumni@trident.edu, and you can speak with our Director of Alumni Engagement, Kendra Temple. I also want to mention CareerBeam, which is a great source for career development resources such as resume reviews, interview practice, and more. Reach out to Trident for Careers at trident.edu and speak with our Career Center Manager, James Shiver. He can definitely guide you through that if you have any questions or issues or want to learn more. So now, speaking of questions, we're going to transition into the Q&A. Let's bring Michael and Dr. Del Hierro back, because we know a few of you have questions, and as a reminder, you can submit your questions in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen about halfway down. So we're going to start things off with Michael. And the question is where is the calendar located? And this is something that came up during your presentation, Michael. I believe this is the calendar for each session.
Right. When you log into your classroom itself, the top of the page, there's a menu bar. One of the options is, I gotta check to see exactly what it is. Course materials, the course materials. Under course materials, it'll list course content and course calendar. It's right under course materials.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Del Hierro, you're speaking about how academic writing differs from other writing. So how do students avoid using the word I or me when the direct question is for our opinion or experience?
That's a great question. Yeah. So what I would recommend you doing is focus on the third person. So if it says, in your opinion, I mean, sometimes you're just going to have to use I. I mean, there are classes that just are blatantly asking about your personal experience. But in most cases, especially in your programmatic classes, I would recommend answering the question in the third person. So if it says, for example, do you agree with building a border wall? It's a controversial topic, but you could answer that question without using the word I, and by saying a border wall is advantageous for the country because of A, B, and C. Some opponents of the border wall would disagree because of A, B, and C. However, after weighing out the advantages and disadvantages, it appears that having a border wall is more effective in achieving an outcome than not. Do you see how I'm still answering using I'm the author, I'm writing it, it's still my thoughts, but I'm not using the word I. I'm answering it in an objective way as I possibly can by using facts. And then at the end, you can summarize by saying it is more advantageous or it is better to achieve an outcome because of this. So just challenge yourself to write in the third person as much as possible. It may be a challenge, and you may not be able to at first. But again, it actually strengthens your ideas. When I'm an instructor and I see this, it strengthens my students' ideas when they do write in the third person, because it sounds like they're objective and it sounds like they've done their research, versus just going off of their own personal opinion. You don't want to sound like you're making decisions off of shooting from the gut, or making an emotional decision. So when you frame that conversation in an objective way, you sound more logical, you sound more rational as a communicator, especially in an academic environment, than using the word I. So it's something very small. It's a great question. It's something very small, but that little adjustment really does make a big impact. And you may just have to practice with it over time to use that really well. I know Michael has some pretty good experiences with this. Do you have anything to add about that, Michael?
I just wanted to echo that. I think that what you mentioned about taking the subjectivity out of it and the emotion out of it is really critical, because you don't want to come off when you're trying to write an argumentative paper with emotional or subjective. You want to provide concrete facts. So a trick that I tell some students to do is to take the main idea of what you're supposed to talk about and turn that into the I. So in your example, you had said, what do you think about a border wall? So instead of I think a border wall, you started off the border wall. So take the main idea of what you're supposed to talk about and turn that into the I, and then things kind of flow a little bit easier once you're in that voice, because you're already out of that I voice, that subjective voice. And once you get out of that, it's a lot easier to just keep rolling in that same wavelength, or in the same idea. So that's great.
Yeah, that's such a great suggestion, Michael. Really, what your instructor is asking when it says when they say what is your opinion on this, really what they're looking for, the question behind the question is, give me a reason why you believe this, by arguing the advantages and the disadvantages, the pros and the cons. Give me different perspectives, and then convince me after weighing these differing perspectives about which one is the best to choose. So we're not just asking for your opinion. The question behind the question is, why do you believe this? But so I'll leave it like that.
Great. Thank you both, and thank you for the student who asked that question. The next question we have, this one is for you, Michael. And that's, can we register for our next course after completion of our first course, or can we do it earlier than that? Should there be any sort of gap?
There is not a gap in between courses. So this course begins today, May 4th. Exactly 8 weeks from today, you will start your second course. I believe that is June 27th, I want to say off the top of my head. Let me look at my calendar. June 29th, forgive me, June 29th. You will start your next class. So there's not a gap in between courses. You are able to register in advance. So as a success advisor, that's my role. So all of you should have a success advisor that's going to line up your next session's classes. They will start immediately after this course. And I would make an appointment with them. If you're in Tux 101 or Tux 301, there is an assignment where you will complete it's called a pre-planning advisor worksheet, where you will go through your path to graduation is what we call it. So your schedule. And you can be scheduled out as far as, I want to say it's around this time next year. I have the ability to schedule my students out back to back to back up until, I think it's maybe October of 2021. Now I will say that there's a difference between having you scheduled and being registered. I can get into the nitty gritty, but essentially you can only be registered up until a certain point. And if it's way out in the future, so I have a student that is registered until 2021, they'll have like a placeholder where they'll be in that course, but then they have to kind of go and confirm the registration because maybe something had changed. And, your success advisor will work with you to say like, hey, do you still want to take this class during this time? And then, you'll reach out and make sure that you confirm that registration. So that's a long answer, but yes, you can. And you should have your schedule kind of back to back to back. You should at least be scheduled for 3 classes at a time. So one in one session, then your next session. You should have 2 sessions scheduled at all times.
I would also like to plug that we have overlapping sessions. So for those of you who are moving at a fast pace and want to accelerate your your degree progression, speak to your student success advisor about taking on an additional class or something like that, so that you can overlap if you feel like you could take on more, because those additional classes really do reduce the amount of time it takes to graduate. And so we want you to take advantage of that if you find you have the opportunity to.
Great advice. And this appears to be our last question. As a reminder, if you have any questions, submit them on your control panel. And if we do not get to them, we will follow up with you after the webinar. And this final question, this is for you, Dr. Del Hierro. What's the typical response time for faculty back to students?
I mean, I would say within a day. That's the typical response time. If you haven't heard anything in a couple days, then reach out again to your faculty member. But I would say all the faculty that I work with are responding in a day or less than a day. And that goes for the feedback too. So faculty technically have 72 hours to provide feedback on assignments. That's basically like 3 business days. But for the most part, almost all the faculty that I work with are responding and having those responses, providing feedback within the next day or 2. So something to keep an eye out on. But if you had any issues with getting a hold of your faculty, then reach out to your advisor as well, because there's something that needs to be looked into. You also have an access to your to the program director, or not the program director, the chair of the class. So when you look into the class list, you'll see all the students in the classes, and you'll see your professor. You can reach out to them, but you also have a program chair that you have access to, and that is your faculty member's boss. So you can always reach out kindly to them as well, and use them as a resource, because they're extremely responsive as well.
Yeah, and don't forget that the program director can also be a networking resource. It's not just don't use it as someone to tell on if you're not hearing from your faculty quick enough. We have a lot of talented men and women here running departments who can definitely advise you in your careers. We have one last question I'm going to slide in here. This one just came in, and this one will affect a number of people. And this one is for you, Michael. How many classes can one take at a time in order to graduate earlier?
You can take 3 classes at one time. That's a great question. I do find that students that take 3 classes at one time are more towards the end of their program. So students that have been to online college before, or students that have been here for a year or 2, and they're nearing the end of their program. It is a lot of work if you're doing 3 classes at once. Kind of what to jump back to what Dr. Del Hierro I mentioned earlier with overlapping classes, that's another way that you're able to kind of do 3 classes at once, but everything is not ending and beginning at the same time, which is a nice way for students to kind of manage things. So For example, you have a class starting today. We have another class session starting on June 1st. So if you wanted to take a class at that point in time, that would be overlapping sessions because this class is not ending until the end of June, and you'd have a class in between. So you'd be in week 3 of this class, and you'd be in week 1 of the other class. Some students will take those 3 classes at once, but they'll overlap them, which allows them to do that maximum of 3 classes at one time. And then when you overlap a session, it kind of knocks a month off of your estimated graduation time at the end, because you're taking a class every month instead of every 2 months. So it kind of shortens it by a month. But yeah, the most you can do at once is 3. I've had one student that was able to do 4 one time, but that needed to be approved by the dean of the program. And that student had proved himself academically at that point to be able to do that. He was really trying to get into a graduation ceremony, so he was able to make that happen. But typically 3 at once is the most.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dr. Del Hierro. That concludes our Q&A session. I know a couple more people sent in questions, and I've already responded to you and let you know that we'll get back to you after the webinar. And so we're going to close things off today. And I just, on behalf of Trident, want to wish everyone success and health going forward. And good luck this session. And we cannot wait to see you on graduation day. Have a great day, great module, and a great session. Bye.